Okay, remember that they're changing my voice. James 4, submit yourselves to God. What causes fights and quarrels among you? Don't they come from your desires that battle within you? You desire but do not have, so you kill. You covet but you cannot get what you want, so you quarrel and fight. You do not have because you do not ask God. When you ask, you do not receive because you ask with wrong motives, that you may spend what you get on pleasures. You adulterous people, don't you know that friendship with the world means enmity against God? Therefore, anyone who chooses to be a friend of the world becomes an enemy of God. So what does this mean, right? It means that when you cling on to the world, when you put flesh above the spirit, that you're the enemy of God. You put these stupid holidays, and you put, your shallow marriages, and you put silly degrees and titles and certificates above the things that matter most. You store riches on the planet instead of riches in heaven. And you, as a result, your groups, your families, you as individuals, your nations, your churches, your mosques, your synagogues, your religious groups, your atheist groups, your agnostic groups, what have you, they are all the enemies of God. And when all is said and done, when you meet your Maker, you're all going to wish that you listened to me. But instead, you couldn't find true adulthood in you to kind of man up if you're a man and to woman up if you're a woman. And it led you and your families astray. Or do you think Scripture says without reason that he jealously longs for the Spirit he has caused to dwell in us? But he gives us more grace. That is why Scripture says God opposes the proud but shows favor to the humble. So some people say, how dare he say that, right? And of course, they're proud. And, pride comes before a fall. Pride causes people to be a slave to sin. And that leads to their fall and to their destruction. There's several scriptures to that effect in Proverbs. Submit yourselves unto God, resist the devil, and he will flee from you. Come near to God, and he will come near to you. Wash your hands, you sinners, and purify your hearts, you double-minded. Again, I am the gate, and people who speak against me, especially when I'm reading Scripture, their families are cooking to the extreme right now in the afterlife. May call down the fire of hell on them and their family spirits, and the ones who are in the afterlife feel it because they have no flesh to distract them. They feel it much more, but it affects them even while they're here as well. Grieve, mourn, and wail. Change your laughter to mourning and your joy to gloom. Humble yourselves before the Lord, and he will lift you up. Brothers and sisters, do not slander one another. Anyone who speaks against a brother or sister or judges them speaks against the law and judges it. When you judge the law, you are not keeping it, but sitting in judgment on it. Now keep in mind that Matthew 7 transcends it. If you think that what he's saying is what he seems to be saying, you have to look at Matthew 7. It says, first remove the log from your own eye. Then you will see clearly to remove the speck from your brother's eye. So it's saying anyone who judges falsely and incorrectly. And if Paul is not saying that, and he's saying what he seems to be saying, then he's wrong, right? He's just Paul. He himself said he was the least of the followers of Jesus. There is only one lawgiver and judge, the one who is able to save and destroy. But you who are you to judge your neighbor, boasting about tomorrow? Now listen, you who say today or tomorrow we will go to this city or that city, spend a year there, carry on business and make money. Why? You do not even know what will happen tomorrow. What is your life? You are a mist that appears for a little while and then vanishes. Instead, you ought to say, if it is the Lord's will, we will live and do this or that. As it is, you boast in your arrogant schemes. All such boasting is evil. If anyone then knows the good they ought to do and doesn't do it, it is a sin for them. So if people know the difference between right and wrong, if they're not what they say, criminally insane in a perfected version, not a mere secular law kind of version, then it is a clear-cut sin for them. You can sin unwittingly, make no mistake. But in that case, it's a clear-cut sin, right? The people perish because they don't have the knowledge of God to know and appreciate what is sinning and what isn't. And that perishing is of their soul. When you really look at life and break it down section by section, right, you see clearly. Like if you're a drug addict and you look at things and you say, how much money are you spending on drugs? What else could you be doing? A lot of times their problem is they know that life outside the divine order sucks and they don't know where the divine order is. So they just keep doing drugs. It's more than just the addiction. It's the misery that comes with following the white man's construct It comes with being a slave to the white Jew and LGBT elite and their token minority allies. That is misery. That is freaking pathetic. So they say, hey, they're just going to do X, Y, and Z instead. It is a serious problem in this society. And so it is with people not wanting to admit that what they're doing is wrong. It's an addiction, right? Alpha Day-C-shun. For those who are like perverts, they look at it as alpha diction because they focus on the reproductive and dating implications. Okay? But again, you got to break down life section by section, right? Say 1 to 9 years old, and 10 to, say, 13 or 14, and 14 to 20, and so on and so forth. Break it down section by section. When you live the way you're living, and when you want your kids to live the way you want them to live, what will those years be like? And then they meet their maker and go off to eternal punishment just because you're afraid to die, you're afraid to be stigmatized, you're afraid to be targeted. It's a stupid plan.